Hello and welcome to another episode of Murphy's Law. I'm Eric Murphy, and with me today is V. LaBianca. Hey, V.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's good.
Good.
Yeah.
I was sick for a week.
I know.
So all last week I was not able to put out any episodes. I'm ready to be back, and I'm excited that you're here recording with me. Thank you, V.
Of course.
As a little bit of an inside, we just finished recording Talk Heathen.
Yeah, and I just got off an interview with Christian Watkins.
Yeah.
So been all over the place.
You have been. I really appreciate you doing this. I was going back through and I had a bit of a thank you. I had a bit of a head scratcher of a call that I wanted to go over. Actually, I'll show that first clip here. Let's just segue right into talking to Sean in Colorado.
Perfect.
Sean, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today? Do you remember Sean?
Vaguely.
Okay. So Sean was in a Patron chat with myself and Genetically Modified Skeptic for GM Skeptic.
Right.
That's right. And he wanted to talk about subjectivity, and it just wasn't a good format for it. And so I told him, you should call in to Talk Heathen. And the next weekend, called in to Talk Heathen.
That's follow through.
And it is. And, at the end of the call, I actually... I told him this. I think that is going to need to be something that I listen back to and unpack, because I don't think I'm going to be able to give you a sufficient response to that. So it's time to do that. It's time to unpack. It's time to listen back and maybe see if there's anything that we missed or anything that we could have done better.
Yeah.
And so let's dive into the beginning when he presents his claim.
What I was going to bring up is the reality of the inherent importance of subjectivity within itself.
The inherent importance of subjectivity within itself. It seems kind of benign, although...
A little word salady.
Yeah, a little bit.
I feel like he was like, I want to talk about subjectivity.
Yeah. It kind of, yeah. I mean, so...
A lot of extra words in there.
Exactly. And really, ultimately, to kind of help ground us as we move forward, what is subjective and how is that different from objective?
Right. So the age-old dichotomy, I suppose, is that objectivity, at least according to a lot of theists, a lot of people who use the two kind of as opposites, objective truth, objective reality, objective morality is code for morality that exists, a thing that exists conceptually outside of us actually. So it's a concept with an actual component that is apart from and not contingent on humanity.
Right.
Whereas, and there's a lot that we grant in just using the term in the same way that they do, because we're granting the concept of Platonic idealism for one, or the fact that there is an external thing to live in at all. I don't know. Well,
so just kind of the idea of Platonic idealism is something that we hadn't actually broached on Murphy's Law.
Oh, really? Okay.
So for people who are watching, Plato had this idea that there was this realm that we didn't have access to. It's this kind of other world, and in that other world are these shapes, these objects, these perfect versions of objects. So if you're holding an apple, what you're actually holding is an imperfect thing that is relating to the perfect apple that's in this kind of Platonic realm. The Platonic apple is the most apple-y apple.
Yeah.
And so that
I don't think
idea,
he called it a Platonic realm.
No, he didn't.
That would have been a little bit self-centered, even for Plato. But
fair.
No, yeah, exactly. And so the concept is often related to things like morality. Like we have an imperfect understanding of morality here, but there is an actual perfect morality elsewhere that we are relating to.
Yeah, we're tapping into it somehow.
Right. And so usually that's code. The code for all of that is objective when you're talking to a theist a lot of the time.
And subjective?
Subjective would be dependent on the individual, a matter of opinion, personal preference, cultural preference, really anything that's based in the human concept as opposed to something external.
Yep. Well, yes. So when he's wanting to talk about subjectivity, he relates back and forth between these things, and it starts to get a little bit fuzzy. And so let's first go into his kind of little more confusing claim here.
What I was going to bring up is the reality of the inherent importance of subjectivity within itself.
Oh, we already got that one. Sorry, this one.
We have used this subjective experience that we are just born into as a validation of the objectivity of the universe divorced from our subjectivity.
So I think what he's trying to say is that there are objective things out there, right? We can objectively say that, an item exists. So we can call this a mouse, true, and you can call it different things, but it is this thing.
Yeah, his whole spiel kind of felt very much like the very first time in Philosophy 101 where I was like a freshman, like 18 years old, and someone was like, there's no way to prove that I see blue in the same way that you see blue. And I was like, oh, whoa, like mind blow. Like that was my line for ages that first year. It was like, funny. Oh, that's my thing. Like, that's amazing. It's so mind, trippy. And yeah, sure. This felt like an extended conversation about that.
It kind of did. It kind of did. And that's not to denigrate the conversation, especially for people who are just exploring these concepts, to begin with. But yeah, so he's basically saying that we are limited to our subjective experience. You cannot get out of your own head to investigate something. That's true. And at the same time, we can independently investigate a thing and see if we come to a consensus about that thing that we investigated and then draw conclusions from there. So we can get to objective in that way. He's saying, but you're still in your own subjective mind frame. So, it's kind of funny. It also reminds me of some presuppositional apologetics.
Oh, fully.
Yeah. And that you can't get out of your own head. So somehow, your take on things doesn't have value or something like that. It's
how
not good enough.
How can you know anything if you can't know everything?
Exactly. Well, if you can't know everything perfectly,
right? If
there's any possibility that you can have an imperfect understanding,
then you are unqualified to talk about anything.
Throw it all out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I'm being a little bit, maybe snide about this call is because this is kind of where it went and where it was going. It's not, hey, isn't this a cool philosophical concept? It's being used as an apologetic to smuggle in claims that we do not agree with.
I think it can be. I don't know if he was exactly.
I totally picked up on
You do?
that. Yeah.
Well, I think he started diving into
his whole
it a little bit.
His whole argument. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. You know what? Let's dive in because I think it's probably going to back up your claim the next clip that I play.
So I think it's hard to claim or say that the universe would exist without our subjective experience when our only experience of literally everything is based upon a subjective capacity.
There. So that's pretty much a restatement of what I was trying to phrase. Now, where he was going, it definitely felt like...
and we got to this place eventually, I think, in future calls with this person, because this isn't the only time they called in.
This is the most recent call.
Is this the most recent one? I don't think so. Is it?
I believe so, yeah.
You're the one who clipped it. I'll run with your assessment there. But to me, it felt very much like, you can't make an objective claim about the universe. Therefore, you cannot objectively claim that God doesn't exist. Therefore, my subjective claim that God exists is just as valid as your subjective claim that he doesn't
exist.
Right. It was an attempt to even everything out so that everything was equally ridiculous and everything was equally possible. And therefore,
Are you sure you don't remember this call?
as it's coming to me. It's coming back to me.
Okay, because I'm just going to dive ahead. We're going to get back to the next clip I was going to play, but just so that we can see that V is consistent.
So let's make sure we're clear on our definition.
Oh, sorry.
Sounds like what you're suggesting ultimately is that because we have a subjective experience, everything outside of that subjective experience is equally unprovable, equally unlikely, and there requires equal amounts of faith. And that's simply not accurate. That's not how it works.
Okay. Well, yeah. I agree with what that person said. That person's spot on.
Yeah, well, I mean, because if it really is throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
There is value in us understanding and exploring things.
Or it's more like, oh, you threw the bathwater out. Why not the baby too?
Yeah. It's we live to explore and learn, and it's just something we have this amazing opportunity to do. I love that I can explore something and then turn to you and say, V, do you see that the way I see it? I mean, that's how we get medicine. That's how we get technology. That's how we get an understanding of the weather. And we don't just say that some gods did it and it's just as likely Thor as it is, these meteorological concepts.
Unless you're proposing, and I believe that we went here too, that even medicine and science and all of this is also in your head.
Well, let's go with the in your head piece, because yes, he does. And actually, you know what? Let me just play that, because you're right. We did go there. We went right here.
Even in science and scientists, that there is an inherent need, a requirement for faith in and of itself.
So yes, science just depends on faith just as much. And so we're smuggling in faith now.
Yeah.
Right? If everything is subjective, then nothing can be trusted, which requires faith.
And just like tip to people who are calling in and trying to use this kind of philosophy to prove a God claim instead of I'm just asking it, that's what gives you away when you start talking about faith specifically. If you're like, oh, this is just purely hypothetical, a question about the universe, and then you bring faith into it, then it's like, okay, well, we know where you're going with this now. So.
Because we've done it enough. We've done this so many times.
You're not going to pull one over on us at this point. So
and we've had other callers actually recently who were doing the same thing. I just want to pin down how important faith is. Okay, let's talk about faith for just a second. What is faith? Faith is accepting something without evidence. Mm-hmm. If you have a different definition of faith, cool. If you want to go with the biblical definition of faith, which is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, that's a deepity. Try using that constructively in a sentence. Doesn't work. Mm-hmm. We're going to go with belief without evidence.
Right, because the only times we use the word faith is when there isn't evidence to back it up. So
exactly.
Pragmatically, that's how you use the term. So
yeah. And that is not to be confused with hope. Mm-hmm. It's not to be confused with trust.
Right, exactly.
And
that's also why we say we don't say we believe in evolution. Right? There's it's a terminology. It's nitpicky to an extent to people who are not using this in an argumentative fashion with apologists. It might seem like we're nitpicking, but when you're in the middle of having a conversation with somebody for whom these words mean very specific things, mm-hmm. and who is maybe trying to get you to switch out words with other words, then nailing these down is very important.
Okay, I define belief as that which you accept to be true.
True, but colloquially, when we talk about belief in a thing,
the colloquial definition is a whole lot more close to hope. So yeah, I got you. Okay. So yeah, he's saying, faith and science, those are just as bad. And really, that's how it feels, is it's saying just as bad.
Right, exactly. So you're admitting it's bad. You just want to pull everyone else down with you.
Yeah. It doesn't really prove the thing. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not saying that this caller's dishonest. I do think, and due to how excited he was in the call, you can tell that this has been something that he's been chewing on for a very long time. And like a lot of us who love this kind of thing, there aren't a whole lot of people to talk to about it. Not everybody's excited about it. So you could tell he's just stoked to bring this up. but he's also kind of diving into a lot of things that we kind of work out over time when we play with these ideas. And one of them was that does the universe exist when we stop existing, right? We went over that, and I'll play that again, actually.
So I think it's hard to claim or say that the universe would exist without our subjective experience when our only experience of literally everything is based upon a subjective capacity.
Okay. So just because things are correlated does not mean that there's a causal link between them. Just because we are thinking beings does not mean that the universe is dependent upon our thinking about it to exist. Mm-hmm. And that, I think that's the first big piece that is a claim that I think needs to be proved, because I don't think that would be the natural, assumption that the universe is contingent upon our conception of it to exist.
Well, I'd be careful with how you use that, though, because the natural assumption could be different for different people based on their...
True. So how would you approach it?
I would say it doesn't fucking matter.
Well,
if my existence is going to be contingent on how I interact in the universe, whether or not the universe exists outside of my existence doesn't impact me at all.
No, but so it does.
I'm gonna act as though it does, because to the best of my ability, it has been proven. Like, I've proven that it does exist outside of myself.
Okay, so here's the thing: is he's trying to tie existence to thinking minds, because a lot of times these arguments move into God is this thinking mind that is the framework upon which all things exist. There is a greater mind that causes all things to exist.
Well, then we just get right back into my favorite pet subject, which is substance dualism. So I can even fine, I will grant that brains create the universe.
I won't.
But you then have to talk about how, like, a brain and a mind, like, is there a giant God brain just floating out there somewhere? Like, what is... No, like, I feel like I can have the conversation about whether or not the universe is contingent on my mind and be like, sure, for the purpose of this conversation, what does that change about my life? What does that change about how I interact with it? Nothing. So it's a useless subject to go down. And then if you try and bring other stuff in, I'm going to push back on that. I'm going to push back on the concept that the mind can exist without a brain, or that there is a big brain God somewhere out there. But
well, and ultimately, I know that you were starting to go down that road because you had this question.
Are you moving us into the direction of solipsism here? Because it sounds like solipsism to me. Are you brain in a vat guy?
Are you brain in a vat guy? I mean, are you? And he says, no, I'm not. And he tries to point out this difference. But the thing is I've watched it back now.
He's brain in a vat guy.
Kind of. I don't know if I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that if what you're pointing out is that we're limited to our subjective experience, and our subjective experience, because it is not absolute, means that everything else is kind of equal, then you're kind of brain in a vat guy.
If you think that the universe would cease to exist without the mind thinking about it, and you are not willing to grant that objective reality exists outside of your mind, that's kind of the definition of hard solipsism. Yeah. So, I don't know. You don't have to believe in an actual brain in a vat, but like the concept is right there.
Absolutely. And so from there, that's when he hops into faith. I've tried to follow along.
Let's make sure we're clear on our definition, so we're not talking past each other. Okay. What do you mean when you say faith?
And it turns out that, his definition of faith was different. Mm-hmm. Those things that you and I automatically go, okay, here's probably where it's going to go. Hey, look at that. That's kind of where it went.
Yeah.
But when I say I want to go back and watch the video and study it, I do. And we do. I mean, how often do you send me a link or something in the middle of the week going, hey, look back at this. This thing happened. I just thought about it. I mean, that's something that we regularly do.
Yeah.
Because we care about it, because we don't want to be stuck in our own ways. Now, if we are limited to our subjective experience, let's answer this. Is there any meaningful use of the word objective? when it comes to reality, truths about the universe or the world that we're in?
Objective
reality, objective truth, objective morality.
To me, it's a gradient. It's not an on or off switch. We can get to more objective truths and less objective truths. Whether or not I like vanilla ice cream over chocolate ice cream is a... Let's use the... Want to use the El Pastor example from today?
No.
No.
Let's just say I didn't know what El Pastor was, apparently.
So here's the thing. You can choose whether or not you like, say, like carne asada or El Pastor. That's a subjective choice.
Sure.
What's objective is whether or not
it's pork or beef. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Right. So it's not a yes or no question.
Well, I mean, the objective piece of that is it this. Now that is objective. And the funny thing is, objective is meaningful in as much as we are deciding together what definitions are.
Right, exactly.
And when we do that, then we can have objective things. Then we can talk about objective things, especially when we're giving definitions to things, which is why in Philosophy 101, we talk about married bachelors.
Right.
And we talk about Socrates being immortal.
Right.
Because those are easy ways to use definitions to create deductive arguments, and that's really it. Is objective statements. Those are kind of those are in the realm of deductive arguments, and subjective would be in the realm of inductive arguments. If you're interested in a little bit more information, I know this is a lot, and I know we're actually over our time, but pop in the comments and let us know if you would like more information about objective, subjective, deductive, and inductive arguments, because I'd be happy to put together a whole bunch of stuff about it. I just want your feedback. But in the meantime, V, what are you up to? Or how can people find you?
Yeah, I am putting together my own channel called How to Skeptic.
You did your first episode. It was awesome.
I did. I've already gotten like indignant libertarians in there, so I'm excited. But so you can find me on YouTube at YouTube/V Rose LaBianca, and there's How to Skeptic there. I also do a C'est La Vie kind of check-in midweek live chat episode for everybody. I am moving in a couple of weeks.
You are?
I am. You know this.
I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. It's going to be a larger studio space. Like, I'm going to be able to actually have a studio, which I'm super excited about. Does mean I'm paying more out of pocket for it. So my goal right now, because my birthday is also in a couple of weeks, is to get up to $250 a month on Patreon to help me cover that studio space, so that I can stay in an apartment big enough to facilitate all of the stuff that I'm going to be doing on YouTube. So if you want to support me there, that's patreon.com/VLaBianca. And you get this Monday, I think everybody's getting the second draft of my script for the episode that's coming
today?
out. Yeah, today. If you are a patron, you already have it.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic. I think people should absolutely, if you like V, you want to support V, that is absolutely a way to do it. V's birthday is on August 23rd. So, that said, V, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. You need to get some rest.
I'm going to not talk all day tomorrow.
That is a fantastic idea. But in the meantime, click here to subscribe. What should we put up? Click up here if you want to support me on Patreon and get early access to videos. And what should we put here?
The next one you do with the last one you've done with Jenna, because Jenna's coming back on.
Ooh, she is coming back on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.